Welcome back, MTN Giants podcast. Whether you like it or not, another season of Giants football is here. And it went about how most week ones go for the Giants. It may have been worse than last year, depending on who you ask. I mean, last year was tough to beat, 40-0. So maybe last year was a bit worse, but this was not much better. 28-6 final score. Vikings win. This whole day sucked. I must have went like 2-4 in fantasy football, lost the fantasy baseball championship today. Giants got blown out. I mean, this day sucked overall. So not the best week one, and I think a lot of people are not happy with the Giants starting quarterback, and I think many people who have been his biggest defenders are now turning on him, which I don't know what the hell took you so long. But today really opened people's eyes, like, wow, this guy is just not that good. And we'll get to him, of course. I don't want to solely blame him for the loss. There were a lot of penalties and discipline issues and coaching calls I was not a fan of. Letting Sam Darnold go 99 yards after possibly the best Giants punt I've ever seen was also a bad look. Plenty of blame to go around today. We'll touch on the offense, defense, some of the storylines. I picked the Giants to win today. I feel like a jackass for that, but they will not fool me anymore. Never picking them week one again. So anyway, hope you guys enjoy. Leave a like, subscribe, all that, and let's get into it. I think we'll just start with summarizing some of the big moments in the game and what went wrong. We'll get some of the radio sports talk topics at the end. We'll get to that, of course. From the second offensive play of the game, it was like, oh man, like what is going on? So there was that 2nd and 8. Jones threw that swing pass to Singletary in the flat, and he fell on his ass and got tackled for like a 6-7 yard loss. Then I think there was a false start right after that, so you're like 3rd and 19 basically on your third play of the game. Of course, it leads to a punt, no surprise. The Giants defense, though, and credit to them, right off the bat, they were ready to play. They had the Dexter Lawrence sack, and then a play later there was the dump down to CJ Ham. And Andrew Phillips, the rookie, on his first defensive possession, had a forced fumble. Okereke picked it up. The Giants took over on Minnesota's 20. They were not able to punch it in. They were settling for 3. A lot in this game, obviously. No touchdowns for the second week one in a row. The next Vikings drive was annoying because the Giants had them in 3rd and 8, and then there was the deep ball to Addison, where they called a pass interference on Adoree Jackson, where I really don't think it was that bad. Maybe he got there a little before the ball was there, but it just seemed like a call that should not have been made. I don't think he was catching it anyway. Seemed like an underthrown football, so I was not a fan of that call, but it was a big call in this game. And then, of course, later, Aaron Jones has that run to the left, and Nick McLeod takes an awful angle, and the Vikings take the lead. And Sam Darnold, of course, credit to him, he was carving up this defense. He must have started like 12 for 12. He was honestly really good in the first half. Had that big 44-yard completion to Justin Jefferson. He beat Deonte Banks on that play, and that, of course, led to a couple more catches by Addison on Nick McLeod. McLeod had a rough drive there, and then there was the slant on 4th and 2, where I was kind of surprised they went for it. That could have made it a 10-3 lead for Minnesota. I'm like, you might as well take the points. The Giants offense did not look like it was in the mood to do much that day, or today. So I was like, you might as well take the points, but they went for it, and to their credit, they got it. It was honestly not bad defense by Deonte Banks. It was a slant to Jefferson. Darnold placed the ball in a perfect spot. Jefferson made a very tough catch. I really thought Deonte Banks played about as good of defense as you could have in that scenarios. I really wasn't that mad at him for that. There was the early second quarter play where Daniel Jones missed a wide open Wandale over the middle, and they would not have gotten the first down. It was 3rd and long, of course, a lot of penalties once again, but it probably would have gotten them in field goal range, and if Daniel hits that throw, then maybe it's a 7-6 game instead. So he misses that throw. I know Van Roten gave up some pressure on that play, but it's still a throw you have to make, and of course Jones made a lot of bad throws in this game, but that was definitely one of them. And back to the play calling, there was the play kind of the end of the first half where it was 3rd and 2 right over midfield, and the Giants for some reason run this quarterback power play where Jones gets the ball in shotgun and tries to run for the first down. Like, there were so many times in this game where it was 3rd down and medium or something, or 2nd and medium, and it just seemed like Brian Daboll had no trust in Daniel Jones to throw the damn ball. It's like we're running him like he's Terrell Pryor on the Raiders that one year when he was quarterback. It was tough to watch. Or Tim Tebow when he was with the Broncos. It was like one of those things. Like, Daniel Jones can throw the football, you might as well do it. So they tried these quarterback rushing plays and just, quarterback power plays, and it just did not work. Third quarter, there was the horrible face mask play by Kayvon Thibodeau. It was 3rd and 16 for the Vikings. Kayvon completely bails them out. They should have punted there. And, of course, he grabs Darrisaw's face mask. They call it. The Vikings get a first down. The run defense was atrocious the rest of that drive. Aaron Jones had 2 big runs. Jalen Nailor had the touchdown on a wheel route. It was a very good play. They had basically Nailor in the slot and Jefferson on the outside. Of course, Jefferson, being one of the best receivers in the business, is going to draw a lot of attention. And they had like a fake screen to Jefferson on the outside. Cordell Flott bid on it. And then Jalen Nailor ran this wheel route. It was an easy touchdown for Darnold. He was wide ass open. So Cordell Flott fell for that bad play by him. There was the 2nd and 20. And this is where people always blame the offensive line. There's definitely that segment of the fan base that always does that. But this is an example of like, you cannot blame the offensive line for this. So Daniel Jones, to his credit, breaks an arm tackle on this 2nd and 20. And he gets out of it, and there's a chance to look downfield and make a throw. Or at worst, you could dump it down to Devin Singletary in the flat and see what he can do one-on-one versus a linebacker. What does Daniel Jones do? He breaks the first tackle. He does the deer in headlights thing and does nothing and takes a sack. It's like, are you serious? You did something right. You broke a tackle in the pocket. That's great. You extended the play. That's great. That's what I want. But then he takes a sack. It's like, you might as well just got sacked the first time. Like, what the hell are you doing? So that pissed me off. Jason Pinnock had a nice pass breakup on Jefferson down the left sideline. Wanted to throw that in there. It was a bit of an underthrown ball by Darnold, but still. And then, of course, at the end of the 3rd, there was the Daniel Jones pick 6, where maybe it's not fully the quarterback's fault. I know a lot of people were blaming the play call because it looked very obvious how you had trips receivers and then you had Wandale come up and in motion. It was like the most obvious screen pass ever. So a guy like Van Ginkel, who's been around for a while, and Van Ginkel's the same guy who hurt Daniel Jones' neck last year, so he has definitely been pretty mean to Daniel Jones over the past year. But Van Ginkel reads it perfectly, makes an incredible catch, and returns it for 6. TJ Watt did a similar thing to Jones opening night in 2020. It wasn't the same exact play, but it was kind of like that. I mean, it happens every so often. Some guys are very good at it. TJ Watt's done it a handful of times, I feel like. So Van Ginkel makes the right play. It was probably a stupid play call. And I would love to sit here and blame Jones for that, but like, I don't know. I feel like the play call was kind of dumb too. And then the 4th quarter, there was the Daniel Jones interception where Harrison Smith, being the savvy veteran he is, pretty much baits him into making a throw. And Jones was staring it down the entire way, and Harrison Smith undercuts it, intercepts it, and that was pretty much the game right there. Once that happened, it was still 28-6 in the middle of the 4th quarter, so you knew it was over by that point. I pretty much shut it off. I was more interested in the Texans and Colts game. It was a good ending there, so wanted to watch that instead. If anything happened after that, I didn't see it. I was disgusted, and just makes you realize there's another season of bullshit on tap for us, and it's been too much lately. You know, it's like since 2017, there's been one exciting season since 2017. That's a long time ago. I mean, think about what you were doing in 2017. It was a different world back then, it feels like. So to have one exciting season out of those 7 seasons, basically, it's just wild. So I feel like we're in for a tough one once again. And I know people will definitely question, like, when is Brian Daboll going to pull the plug on Daniel Jones? Because after today, it might be sooner than we thought. Jones was 22 for 42, 186 yards, 2 interceptions. As I said, one of the interceptions might have just been bad luck, so it's tough to completely blame him, but I was not a fan of the play call either. And you look at the next-gen stats at Daniel Jones's passing chart, where, of course, they show you the dots of where the throws were located, and the Giants were putting this emphasis on pushing the ball downfield, explosive plays, and blah, blah, blah. The guy threw one pass over 20 yards today out of 42 attempts. 42 attempts and one was barely over 20 yards. I mean, it's just like, what the hell were you guys doing or implementing over training camp and over the offseason? Like, how did it lead to this? Does Brian Daboll not trust Daniel Jones at all? Does he not trust the offensive line to hold up long enough? I don't think that was the issue today. I really don't think the offensive line was that bad in this game. So it's almost like they're doing the same stuff they did last year to a degree. It's like, we're trying to push the ball down the field here, but instead they're doing these short, simple passes. And the craziest part of it all is the Giants were trailing for the entire game. It's like they were up 3-0, then they got down 7-3, and by that point it snowballed to 28-6 or whatever. It's like you were trailing by multiple scores for a lot of this game, and you did not take one deep shot. You had one pass just over 20 yards. Not one deep shot to Slayton, not one deep shot to Neighbors. Neighbors had some nice catches on like deep curls and whatnot in the zone, against zone defense, but no deep shots in this game. I know Jones is not the best thrower of a deep ball, I get it, but take a damn shot. No Jalen Hyatt, who played, I think, 15 snaps? I saw Jordan Ronan tweeted, 15 snaps. I mean, that usage makes no sense either. Like, why did you trade up for Jalen Hyatt in the third round when you already didn't have that many draft picks after that in the first place? Like, why did you trade up for him to not use him? That's what I don't get. I know Hyatt's not going to become this wide receiver one day. He's not going to be like what Tank Dell is or something like that. But there's still a world where Jalen Hyatt's a useful receiver or maybe a wide receiver 2 one day. And the Giants are just burying him on the bench behind Slayton and Wan'Dale. And I get it with Wan'Dale. He's young, but I don't know why Slayton's on this team. I don't mean to call him out like that because he really like wasn't the issue today, I feel like. But I just feel like with his situation being a contract year and being, I think, 27 years old now, it's like, what's the point? Like, let's just play the young guys. You have 3 young receivers in Wan'Dale, Neighbors, and Hyatt. Like, just play those guys more. You have a young tight end room with you have Bellinger, you have Theo Johnson, you have young tight ends as well. So it's like, I just want to see the youth movement, and maybe Slayton does get traded by the deadline. It could happen, of course. There are some teams that need wide receiver 2s out there. I would say the Detroit Lions come to mind if Jameson Williams does not pan out this year. Or maybe a team like Pittsburgh. They have really nobody outside of George Pickens. So I don't know. There's teams out there that could need somebody, but for the Giants defense, it was disappointing with the defensive line. They really got, aside from Dexter Lawrence, who definitely had his great moments in this game, especially early, between Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau, I felt like they did nothing in this game. It was like very disappointing. I expected those guys to come out and have a good game today, and it didn't happen. I know that Minnesota has good tackles, I get it, but these are guys that, one, you took in the first round, top 10 in Kayvon, 7th overall, or 5th overall, not 7th, that was Evan Neal, 5th overall, top 5 pick. And then one is Brian Burns, who you gave up a 2nd and a 5th round pick for, or maybe it was a 6th, and they gave him a big-ass contract on top of it. And he was pretty invisible too. He made like one nice play. It was a chase down play, I believe. But aside from that, like Brian Burns was pretty invisible. Kayvon did nothing aside from that ridiculous face mask penalty that costed them a first down. The guys who I thought played well on defense, I will give a shout out to Darius Muasau, who had his first interception, did have a tackle for a loss as well. Drew Phillips had a couple nice moments, the rookie 3rd rounder, so that was good to see. Of course, had the forced fumble, had the big 3rd down tackle at one point over the middle. Did have a tackle for a loss as well, so I liked what I saw from him. Tyler Nubin had some nice moments. He played pretty well. Deonte Banks, as I said, he had his moments in this game. I thought even the slant touchdown he gave up was not that bad of defense. And Jefferson didn't kill the Giants in this game. Jefferson had 4 catches for 59 yards and a touchdown. I would say that for the most part, that's a pretty down day for him. Definitely did not hit his over on his yards, so I would say it was a down game for Jefferson's standards. I thought the run defense was pretty bad at times. It seemed like Aaron Jones had his way. He was at 6.7 yards per carry, 14 carries for 94 yards. Ty Chandler behind him was not efficient, 2.1 yards on 8 carries. But yeah, the run defense had to be better. The corners, I think the cornerback 2 spot was bad. I thought Nick McLeod was awful today. Cordell Flock gave up the big touchdown to Naylor, so that was a massive play in this game that was terrible. So I think in a lot of regards, the defense has to be better. I don't think they were as bad as the offense, of course. And of course, like the defense only gave up 21 points. 7 of those were on the pick 6. So maybe the defensive outing was not as bad as it looks, but it also could have been much better. And when you see Sam Darnold, who's now a journeyman, I know he's still 27 years old and maybe has a future in this league for somebody, to see him go 99 yards on your defense in the first game of the year at home, it's like that is such a demoralizing thing to happen. This is not like it's the Chiefs offense or the Bills offense or the Lions. Like, it's the freaking Vikings, who I don't think are that great of a team. And maybe they are. As I said in the preview video, like, their defense is better than I thought it was. It's still not a great defense. It's definitely not top 10. For the Giants offense to have this type of performance, it's very concerning. And I think looking at the Giants' schedule coming up, I'm trying to think, like, how long will it take the Giants to make a quarterback switch? And maybe, I doubt it, but maybe we wake up tomorrow and it's a shocking quarterback switch. I'm not counting on it. But so next week they're at Washington. They played Tampa today. Tampa beat them pretty nicely. It was like the final score may have been closer. There were a couple garbage time Jaden Daniels rushes for touchdowns, but Washington at least had an offense that kind of looked competent, and Jaden Daniels looked pretty good at times as well. And truthfully, it's tough to really favor the Giants over anybody. I mean, the Panthers are awful. The Giants might be favored in that game, but the Patriots, who I thought were awful, they won today. I know the Bengals were kind of undermanned today, but they won that game. And then you have, and even the Saints, who I don't like, I know they played the Panthers, but they put up 47 points today. So even teams that I thought were bad are looking pretty good. So at least it's just, through week one. The game at Cleveland could be tough. I think with that game, so the Giants play at Cleveland in week 3 at 1 o'clock. And then there's a quick turnaround on Thursday. It's a home game versus the Cowboys. And I think if Jones stinks it up in that game versus Dallas, which Dallas's defense looked good today, I know it was against Deshaun Watson, who is just kind of ass at this point. I do somewhat feel bad for him. It's like his football skills left his body after that whole massage thing. So that's just, I don't want to say it's a shame, but hey, like, I don't know. Just, he's a different guy at this point. So I'm thinking, assuming Jones stays healthy, maybe they don't make that change until week 5, which actually, ironically, week 5 is at Seattle, where Drew Lock came from. So Drew Lock in a revenge game can go to Seattle as a starter, a 425 game. So I would guess right now that Drew Lock is the starter week 5 if things trend like this. Maybe they can't even wait that long. Maybe if Jones sucks that badly next week, which maybe he does, and Washington eats him alive, which would be pretty embarrassing because their defense I don't think is that great. They lost Cameron Curl. They lost every good edge rusher they have, Montez Sweat, Chase Young, and they lost Fuller too, who went to the Dolphins. So they lost a lot of good defensive pieces, the Commanders. So if they destroy Jones next week, that might be enough to pull the plug on it, but even sending out Drew Lock at Cleveland's tough because the Browns do have a good defense for the most part. Not so much today. I know some of it was special teams. The Cowboys had a punt return touchdown. But the Browns defense, and especially playing at Cleveland's not the best environment, but still, they might just be so fed up with Jones. Maybe it's week 3. So I think it's either week 3 or week 5 we see Lock, and I would guess week 5. It's just a shame, and I said this in my season preview video, so it's no surprise, but as I said, it's just a shame that we're wasting another year on Daniel Jones. It just feels like it's been 4 years too long at this point. I was ready in 2020 after that game he had versus Tampa where he had the awful interceptions and whatnot. I was ready to move on. And, looking back on it, I think I've said this before as well, like 2022 was kind of a curse for this team. If the Giants came in and had a bad year in 2022, they could have drafted one of Stroud or Anthony Richardson and really reset this franchise's timeline, but instead they go out and win. They win a playoff game. It was fun during the time, but looking back on it now, it's like, man, like that was probably the worst thing for this organization. It was nice to be relevant again and win a playoff game, but at the same time, I think we knew that run was not going to last too long, and the Eagles beat the crap out of them the next week. It's gotten pretty bad with Daniel Jones and the fans, too. It's gotten to a point where I kind of feel bad for him as a person. I know he can wipe his tears with $40 million of money this year, but still, it's like, I saw the video of fans taunting him leaving the arena or leaving the stadium today. It's like, I don't know if that's the move. I didn't hear anything too bad, but just people saying you suck and go home. Just stuff like that. And there were people burning his jersey in the parking lot. I mean, your first mistake was owning a Daniel Jones jersey in the first place. But maybe we're taking it a bit too far. It is only one game after all. I'm going to try and put a positive spin on this as we end it. The Giants do play Washington. They're only 2.5 point underdogs right now, so I was kind of surprised. I thought it'd be like 3.5. But even after that, you have Cleveland. So I think you have two somewhat winnable games on deck. I would say Washington's definitely more beatable. And once again, playing in Cleveland's not that easy. But if their quarterback is still Deshaun Watson, who just looks probably as bad as Daniel Jones now, it's a winnable game. So I think the next two games are still winnable. I did think this game was very big, but as I said, like they could afford to lose this game and win the next two, and they'll still be all right. I definitely wanted them to win this game. It would have made me feel much better about the season going forward. Now we have to sit here for 6 more days and kind of think about what the hell just happened and can they fix this. Ultimately, I don't know if they can. I think Daniel Jones' confidence and what he had of it is completely shot. I think he's like done. I don't know if he trusts his knee from the injury. I just think he's in a bad place right now. I don't know, like I'm not trying to make this like too personal, but I just think confidence-wise, just from his football career, he's in a bad place. And I just think he's lost all confidence in his abilities because of his play on the field, obviously. The media is always tough on him, which is fair. I mean, that's what media is about. That's what you get when you play quarterback for the New York Giants. But at the same time, you kind of feel bad for him on a personal level. He is human at the end of the day. So we'll see how this plays out. But it's also malpractice from Joe Schoen of how they pretty much went into this offseason and the entire training camp and preseason just giving Daniel Jones the quarterback one job. You know, it's like they had no contingency plan. Like, what if Jones sucks? You know, like the one real game action he played versus Houston, he was awful. He had a better second quarter in that game, but the embarrassing interception, the pick six, and then there was the other interception down the right sideline on the deep throw. So it's like you went into the offseason and it's like, all right, we'll get rid of Tyrod and bring in Drew Lock, who's younger, okay, but still, that's not a great contingency plan in case Jones sucks, which seems like right now that's a pretty real outcome that may actually happen. So if Jones has completely lost it, which maybe he has, then you're looking down the barrel at Drew Lock and Tommy DeVito. And it's like, what can those guys do? I don't think Drew Lock is that much better than Daniel Jones. He might be a bit better at this point in their careers, but overall, I don't think anybody's going to save this team. But at this rate, if they start out 0-3, I'm going to get to a point where I'm rooting for losses anyway. So it's like, if that happens, then so be it. Like, play whoever the hell you want. And maybe I'm a bad fan for that. I get it. But at the same time, I'm tired of missing out on quarterback prospects because the Giants want to start out 1-7 every year and then win games down the stretch that they really should not be winning. I get it. I don't want to get into the whole tanking conversation again. But it's just, I understand players play to win, coach to win. But it's very annoying how this team year after year starts out horribly, like 2-6, 1-7, and you're looking up the top quarterback prospects and thinking like, hey, we might get this guy, and then, you know, they'll go 5-3 to end the year or something like that. It's very annoying. It's definitely a tease. If you're gonna suck, just suck. That's it. Like, if you're gonna start out 0-3 and look dead the entire, first month of the season, just do that the entire year. I understand you're trying to save jobs and whatnot. If you ask me, would you rather have the 12th overall pick and Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen stay, or would you rather have the first overall pick and Schoen and Daboll get fired? I'm taking the first overall pick. The hell with those guys. What have they shown us? Okay, yeah, they had a good first year here. They got very lucky in one-score games, blah, blah, blah. But I'd rather have that first overall pick. I would have rather had it last year. That would have been very ideal, getting freaking Caleb Williams here. But even in the scenario we're in right now, where it's Quinn Ewers or Shadur Sanders, whoever the hell's going to come out this year, I'd rather have the first overall pick because I do feel bad for Daboll that his entire coaching career is tied to Daniel Jones, and maybe he's part of the problem. Maybe he wanted DJ back. We'll never know the entire truth behind that one, but Joe Schoen too. Joe Schoen, this is his quarterback. He extended Jones, and this is what you get. And that's why people like me and very other few Giants content people out there were very hesitant about the idea of re-signing Jones in 2022's offseason or 2023's offseason, because I didn't really think giving Jones that amount of money was smart. It just didn't seem sustainable. It wasn't very consistent. That year in 2022, they started out like 7-2 and ended the year like 3-5 or something. So it's like, I know Jones had the big games versus Minnesota and the big game versus a Colts team that was pretty much dead at that point and coached by an ESPN analyst, Jeff Saturday. But I still would not have given him that contract. I'm not even saying that in hindsight. You can go back and watch my videos from that offseason. I definitely would not have given Jones that contract. I would have offered him a franchise tag at most. And if it was a multi-year deal, I would never have given him more than $20 million per year. And I know what the quarterback market is, and people say, well, that's what quarterbacks go for. But my next question would be, who the hell were the Giants bidding against? There was no other team out there that was going to give Daniel Jones that level of contract. And if they did, then so be it. There was no other team out there that was going to give Jones a freaking contract of that magnitude. So that entire offseason's where things really went wrong here, and it just is what it is. I kind of wish it went opposite, how 2022 was great. I wish 2022 sucked, and then 2023 was great, and 2024 was even better. The Giants are just doing this whole thing in reverse, how 2022 was great, 2023 was pretty bad, and now 2024 might be the worst of them all if it goes at this rate. So it's just, it's a shame. I feel like when you're in year 3 of a regime, and by the way, I've said this a billion times on this channel, it does not take 5 years to rebuild in the NFL. It takes like 2 or 3. I mean, look at the freaking Texans. I know they had to kind of luck into CJ Stroud, but at the same time, they built a damn good roster there as well. Nick Caserio took over that team with nothing. They had no assets. Bill O'Brien traded everybody. That was good for garbage. They traded DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson. That was embarrassing. They traded either a second or a third round pick for a backup running back, a third down backup running back, Duke Johnson, who was pretty much washed at that point. And even like in Cleveland, I know Cleveland hasn't been great because they got stuck with Deshaun Watson. I mean, not stuck with, they did go out and sign him, but even for Cleveland, like they found ways to stay relevant and win ball games. I mean, this might be a tough year for them depending on how things go. But even last year, they made the playoffs, and I feel like with Stefanski and Andrew Berry, they've been able to stay competitive and build a good roster. Their defense is phenomenal. And even the Detroit Lions with, I think it's Brad Holmes as their GM, and they have Dan Campbell, like that turnaround did not take too long. They had, I think, 1.5 bad seasons, basically, and now Detroit's like a Super Bowl favorite from the NFC. So it's like, it does not take this damn long to build a team. And when you're paying a quarterback this much, you should be expected to compete. You're in year 3 of a GM, year 3 of a head coach. You're spending a $47 million cap hit on your quarterback this year. You should be expected to compete, just knowing those 3 things. Year 3 for a GM, year 3 for a head coach, quarterback's making a shit ton of money. Your team should be ready to compete right now. You have a wide receiver 1 who's legit. You have a defense who, yes, could be better, but I think their defense is all right. I mean, their defensive line is great. I think most teams would take the Giants' defensive line. Most teams would take Bobby Okereke. A lot of teams would take Deontay Banks. I know the secondary is pretty shaky, but the front 7 at least is pretty good for the Giants. Once again, I don't think the offensive line was that bad today. Even in the Texans game when they played, I don't think it was that bad. Like the starters for the offensive line have looked pretty good so far. I don't think they're the issue. The issue today was Daniel Jones was highly inaccurate and looked terrible and has no confidence, and he might be completely shot. And we'll see if he bounces back next week. Maybe he does. Maybe I come on here next week and it's a completely different tune and things are great, but I'm not expecting that. So it's just a shame. It feels like more time is being wasted with this franchise, and I don't know what's going to happen once again. And I brought this up in my preview video for this game. Seeing how Saquon played, I'll say it again. I wonder if Saquon has a great season and the Giants are awful and the Eagles go on to like make the Super Bowl. Like what is John Mara going to think? I really am not sure about this. So I kind of feel bad for Joe Schoen at this point because I would not want to face the music when that time comes. And if the Eagles are as good as I think they'll be this year and Saquon plays like he did on Friday, he might have some tough questions to answer, and it might cost him his job. And once again, I think moving on from Saquon was the right thing to do. I have no problem with that, but the optics of it looks bad, right? If Saquon went to Houston and did what Joe Mixon did today, which he was great too, then yeah, it wouldn't look as bad. But him going to Philly, it really put a target on Joe Schoen's back from like John Mara's perspective. That's how I feel at least. So anyway, yes, the top 2 teams in this division win. The Cowboys looked great. The Eagles escaped with a victory in Germany. It didn't look great. Jalen Hurts actually looked pretty awful for a lot of that game. So, I mean, it's a new offensive coordinator, a new center. There are things to get used to, but some of his passes were inaccurate and just stupid. And then the Commanders, they had some promising moments today. I thought, Jaden Daniels had his moments where he was looking really good, but It has to be more consistent. The Commanders' defense was awful. I think the Bucs scored 37 on them today. So the Giants' offense has a chance next week to go against a defense that sucks. And I really hope they can put up over 20 points in that game. We saw it last year how week 1 was awful. They were on the road against a bad team in the Cardinals, and they went out and scored a bunch of points. So maybe that similar thing happens again, but I do think the Commanders have something cooking. The game against Arizona last year was Josh Dobbs, who had a bit of a insanity run last year, but now you're facing Jaden Daniels. This guy was a second overall pick who I would take over Josh Dobbs any day. So we'll see what next week brings. I'll have a Giants preview on probably Friday or Saturday. I don't know what video I want to do during the week. I definitely want to make some type of NFL video during the week. So if you have any ideas, leave them in the comments. I just definitely want to make a video just talking about the NFL because there was a lot to talk about today. So I may do that. Let me know in the comments. Give me some ideas. But anyway, sorry about what happened today. I do feel bad for this fan base at this point. I feel like this is therapy for me and a lot of other people that listen. So it's tough, but I think one day we'll get out of this, hopefully. I don't know if this is the right regime to do it. I really thought it was at one point. I'm kind of losing hope as games go on, but there will be a time when Giants football is fun to watch again. So we'll see when that is. It probably won't be this year, but at least we have Malik Neighbors. That was fun. But aside from that, not much to look forward to. So we'll see what the future holds. Anyway, thanks for watching. Once again, leave a like if you hung on this far or stuck around this long, and I'll talk to you guys next time.